Hey everyone, this is Louis7, and today I want to talk about the MMORPG The Lord of the Rings Online, which I think is a very fun game to just simply boot up and play and have an enjoyable play session doing that. But I also think there are some important issues and circumstances surrounding the game that can sidetrack from that fun to play experience that I think need to be talked about and addressed. So that is what I will be going over in this video, but I want to point out that I also had the idea when I was planning this video that it could fit into this broader topic on the state of LOTRO as it is right now in mid-2021. So as a heads up, I do plan to follow up videos on this topic. But back to this video, I plan to break down why I feel this way about the game, with it being both fun to play and enjoyable, yet at the same time, it also has some frustrating issues to go along with that. So first, I want to talk about LOTRO being fun, and that of course is a subjective thing that I have actually talked about a lot in other videos, so I will not be repeating all the details from those videos, which I will link them in the description if you are interested, but what I do want to do is talk about how LOTRO is fun, and it's quite simple. LOTRO is fun when focusing solely on the content and gameplay of the game and not when focused on these other detracting factors. And this is kind of going to be the theme of the video. Focusing on the content of the game is what makes it fun. As far as what I personally have fun with in the game, I have most fun doing two main things. So first is going on immersive adventures while leveling and questing. And the second is going through group content with instances and the raids with such with my kinship. So those are the two main things I enjoy in the game, especially again when focusing solely on the content and gameplay experience. But the problem I run into, especially when thinking about the broader topic on the state of the game, is that when not solely focused on the content and gameplay, there are many things that can negatively impact the amount of fun I have while I am playing LOTRO, and it can sometimes even sway me to not playing the game at all. So I believe there are two main aspects to this issue. And first, there are some parts within the game itself. This is mainly in the form of some frustrating game systems and just generally annoying progression systems that I am not really a fan of. So these often get in the way of my gameplay experience and even make the content itself less fun, which I think progression systems should actually do the opposite, I would think. And this of course does overall make LOTRO less fun for me. The second aspect here is that there are a few factors outside of the game that don't really inspire much hope for the game at all, and this is primarily in the form of the way LOTRO is run by Standing Stone Games, which is the developers of LOTRO, and mainly from poor communication, even some of their business decisions and monetization practices, stuff like that. And these factors can also diminish the enjoyment that I can get out of the game. So for both of these factors, I think the problem comes in when focusing on them too much and not just the raw content and gameplay that LOTRO offers. So if I always have these detractors on my mind, then it can also definitely make me not in the mood to play LOTRO at all. So to begin talking about these factors in more detail, I first want to start with the communication and Standing Stone Games part. And at this point in the video, I do have to make a disclaimer that I started planning this video way back months ago in late 2020. And obviously a lot of things have happened since then. But the positive note for LOTRO and Standing Stone Games is they have actually improved their communication greatly throughout this recent period and early to mid 2021 especially. So this has honestly shined some new light in regards to how I and even many other players view Standing Stone Games and their efforts on the development of LOTRO. But this is going to be the exact topic that I will be covering in part 2, so we will save that for later. And I did just want to share this little note here to give the full picture of what is going on to be completely fair here in this video. And having that in mind for this video, I still want to share a little bit of what was going on because it's important, especially when thinking about how it can make LOTRO actually a less fun to play experience when I am in the game. So for a time period there, especially in 2020 to even early 2021, there was a bit of a growing negative sentiment from within the LOTRO community regarding Standing Stone games, and more specifically with a lot of the business decisions and their development choices with some of the systems within the game. So I admit my viewpoint on this could be partially due to negativity bias, but there was just a lot of this negativity going around from the community around late 2020 to early to mid 2021 again. And I think the majority of this negative sentiment in the community was due to poor community interaction from Standing Stone games, as well as some monetization practices that were also poorly communicated. So you probably notice a theme here, just poor communication overall from the people who run LOTRO. And I have a few solid examples of poor communication cases, and the first is going to be with the War of Three Peaks mini expansion. There were a lot of things going on with the mini expansion that weren't really detailed or communicated, or basically any info given to us from Standing Stone games about it. And as a result, the mini expansion was heavily criticized by many sources since its beta before it even launched, and that did include me. I had a whole review on the mini expansion and why these things were so frustrating. Even though I actually ended up enjoying the content of the mini expansion, there were all these outside factors with Standing Stone games that made it actually a less enjoyable experience, even though the content was really, really fun in the War of Three Peaks there. So there were a lot of issues going on there. And one more example I do want to highlight is in early 2021, there were some changes to the infamous legendary item system, which essentially had huge backlash from the community. And there was this sort of bubble burst situation where basically everybody ended up sharing their thoughts on how bad they thought the legendary item grind was, and how these changes they had in early 2021 made the grind even worse. But until there was a ton of backlash, we got no communication from Standing Stone games on why they were making these changes. And we didn't even get their viewpoint on this system, on these changes at all. And while those changes, there have been some improvements made since those changes were made, it still overall seemed like quite a bad situation for us LOTRO players in regards to poor communication from Standing Stone games. And with these couple of examples that I have, that was just the reality for us LOTRO players for a long time there, 2020 to 2021 timeframe with those. And that situation was just very little communication and interaction from the people who work on the game that so many of us do enjoy and play and even pay for. So again, there have been some improvements made, but that is going to be the focus of the next video. In the next video, I will also be talking about potential further improvements that I think still could be made. But to summarize my point on this poor communication topic for this video, if I focus on this lack of communication and input from the people at Standing Stone games, then I honestly just don't feel optimistic about LOTRO's future. I won't have hope that anything will change. I didn't have hope that anything will even be fixed, the broken stuff. And I don't have hope that any general improvements will be made to the game in the future. And it gives me the sense that the people at SSG that run LOTRO don't care about the game, which obviously should really, hopefully at least, not be true. They should really care about the game, and I assume they all do care about that game, but that's the type of sense it gives me. And even though the communication nowadays has been improved from that state, I still worry that we will revert back to that state in the future and we will have a lack of communication and we won't ever know what the viewpoint from Standing Stone games is again. So having said that, right now, it's still something that if it's on my mind and I think about it too much, it can sometimes make me not really in the mood to play LOTRO. But that is where I will leave that topic until the next video. And for the next part with this, we're going to cover the game systems that I mentioned detract from the gameplay experience. And I would not doubt there are some people getting annoyed at me actually for talking about this so much, but these progression systems are just that annoying that I feel the need to complain about them all the time. And for anybody unfamiliar, we do have the 3 core progression systems in LOTRO that are very grindy, and I don't think they just promote a healthy progression experience. So individually, we have these systems of class trait points, virtue traits, and the imbued legendary item system. And individually, they are not each all too bad, but it's more so that you need to keep up with all 3 of these to really progress with your character, and also that regularly running through the content in the game will not be enough to progress on them. So you have to do lots of grinding even while just normal leveling to work on these systems. and I just think that's another frustrating aspect of them. But I do want to point out, at low levels, these systems are actually mostly ignorable because they don't really come too much into play, and this is the situation where I feel like I can ignore them, and instead I feel free to focus solely on the content I am running. And this goes back to that idea of, if I, instead of focusing on these systems and factors outside the game and all that, if I focus solely on the content I am running and get fully immersed within the game, then I definitely find LOTRO very fun to play. So one of these problems is with the progression systems is they're basically always on my mind because I want to progress my characters and make them better, so of course they're on my mind. So with that, I just end up thinking that I don't want to go through that stuff on my characters or alts or whatever, and I come to the realization that most of my characters will be abandoned because I don't want to do that on them, and I would just rather do other things. And even though I enjoy the low-level content in LOTRO, sometimes I just don't even want to play my low-level characters or alts, knowing that they will become abandoned because I will stop playing them. I lose that sense of MMO progression that is so core to the genre, and it really does kill my motivation to play the game sometimes and play these alts. But I do want to point out, with alts, if I can focus on just the content and just playing them until they run too much into these progression systems, then I will just stop playing them and do something else when they do run into that. So that could be playing a different character within the game or just another game altogether. So while I do try to just focus on the content with these alts, sometimes that is not even enough because the idea of them being abandoned later in their lifetime, it just drives me to not wanting to play them sometimes. And I think that just sums up the reality of these progression systems, is it actually makes me not want to progress on these characters, oddly enough. But that is all I have on the progression systems, and with that we have covered what I believe are the two main factors of why there is a but in the title of this video with the in-game progression and the things outside the game itself. So since it was a long while ago, just as a reminder, LOTRO can definitely still be a very fun game to play, and for me at least, I just have to focus on that instead of these two factors. So that is all I do have for part 1 on what I am making the State of LOTRO mini-series, and looking forward, part 2 I will discuss the signs of hope for the future as a follow-up to what was discussed in regards to communication and standing stone games today. And with what I discussed today, I am curious on your all's thoughts on all the topics in today's video. If you do want to comment that below, I would appreciate it. And as far as this video goes, I hope you all enjoyed it and maybe learned a little bit about LOTRO. And if you did, please consider liking and subscribing for more, or becoming a channel member to support the content. And thanks for watching, everyone.